I'm Michael Popok, and this is Unprecedented. Supreme Court has about a half a dozen cases on its docket this year alone in order to try to figure out whether the Environmental Protection Agency can do its job and keep our water clean and our air clean, or the Supreme Court's going to side with big oil, big petroleum, big fossil fuels, and MAGA red states against the interests of Americans. They already, last term, ripped away all the protections of our administrative state that regulators have, and now they're going after the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. We break it all down for you on Unprecedented. Let me preface by saying
Okay.
that last term, the on the checklist, on the Christmas list of things that the Federalist Society and the alt-right have wanted to accomplish once they got the numbers on the United States Supreme Court. If you were to look at the list that Leonard Leo carries around in his back pocket,
Mhm.
it says destroy a woman's right to choose enshrined in the Constitution in Roe versus overturn Roe versus Wade. Okay, put a big green check next to that. They did that. Second is anything related to the administrative state, which to describe that quickly to our audience, Congress passes a law. Sometimes it's a page, sometimes it's a 500 pages. But for the nitty gritty of how to implement that law or how to implement the rest of our regulations, the regulations are not made by Congress and 528 members of Congress. The regulations are delegated over to an administrative agency that's responsible and expert in that area, who then passes regulations after public comment, and then they put with industry input, and then they put together the regulations, and that's published in what we call the Code of Federal Regulation, the CFR. That's not for Congress people, that's off a delegation. And Congress and the Supreme Court and MAGA right have hated the delegation to administrative agencies and the rise of what they see as an out of control administrative state that's not helping people, but hurting business and hurting whatever they're hurting. So they've tried to dismantle the administrative state, or what they call the administrative state. And one of the things they've been attacking is laws created in violation of what they think is the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA, which is created by Congress. Oh, you violated the APA, Environmental Protection
Mhm.
Agency or Department of Justice or this or that. You didn't do it right. You didn't jump through this hoop or whatever. And they try to strike the thing down related to that. And then they got rid of all the ways, the mechanism by which regulators have been fining and assessing penalties and then enforcing those through administrative law judges within the agency itself. That got dismantled last year. And then finally they've hated, Leonard Leo has hated what's called Chevron deference, which is what you and I learned in law school, which is you leave it to the experts, you give them the benefit of the doubt in the
Mhm.
actual administrative area, and the judge should defer, unless it's completely crazy, defer to the position taken by the administrative agency and their experts. Like they know more about clean water and clean air than some judge who failed biology in high school. And so it was called giving deference to the agency. That got completely ripped out of the books after 50 years, and no long now the opposite. The Supreme Court told federal judges, that's your job. You
Mhm.
come up with whether this clean water, clean air issue is right or wrong. You don't listen to the experts. You don't defer to them. You make the decision. Because why? Because they got MAGA judges and Trumper judges who are going to side with big oil, big business, big fossil fuels. So that was last term. Now we got a whole bunch of cases this term in which they're going to go after each one of these agencies, starting with the Environmental Protection Agency, which has been a thorn in the side of big business and big oil and big fossil fuel forever. So, what's the new ruling that we just found
Well,
out about this week?
yes, and to your point about that, Project 2025 is trying to do it on the other end. They're trying to get employees in these agencies who will not even implement the rules already in place or write new rules in order to enforce it. So that's kind of the bookend. Project 2025, they're trying to take away the enforcement of these laws. And then you have Leonard Leo trying to do that through the courts. They're both trying to do the same thing, but two different ways. And so in this EPA ruling, they basically, what EPA was trying to do was to to decrease emissions. And I wrote this down because it's stunning how much this rule would be helpful for our air to be clean. That for the next 20 years, this rule in place for the next 20 years would prevent the annual emission of 328 million gasoline cars and provide 400 billion in benefits to the climate and public health. Like a massive um, uh, rule benefiting us. And basically, what they wanted to do is this is, they have contested this rule, and they want it to, say that this was exceeding the authority of the EPA. And they asked the Supreme Court to basically block the rule while the challenge went through the courts, because the challenge can take several years. We all know, through Trump's thing, how long our justice system can take. The challenge could take several years. The Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to block this EPA rule. We'll wait and see once it actually comes in front of us, and then we will make a decision on it, but we'll let this rule stand. And to your point, there's already several other EPA rules having to do with mercury, having to do with methane, that they have also asked the Supreme Court to block as it goes through the courts. And the Supreme Court has said in those situations also, we're not going to block it. But that just means like the rules in place until they go to here. Interestingly, with this order, we did get a sense of where some of the justices lie. And another interesting thing, talking about ethics, Justice Alito did not participate in this order. He owns stock in one of the companies. So we'll see, does he actually recuse himself in this case? He didn't participate in this order. We know that Thomas said he would have blocked the rule, shocker, and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch would have they agreed with not blocking it, but they thought that it was likely that there would be success on the merits. So we know that Kavanaugh, Thomas, and Gorsuch will want to permanently block this law once it comes in front of them. And really, the question will become, what does Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett decide when this finally comes in front of it? So we got a little bit more of a glean of where the justices lie on here.
Yeah. It's the Amy Coney Barrett court this term, because if she votes with the reasonable wing of the Supreme Court, it'll get it'll be allowed to stay in place. And if she doesn't, Roberts has he's such a weather vane. He just goes wherever MAGA goes at this point. So my eyes are on Amy Coney Barrett for the term. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.